Welcome, everyone. I'm John Pescatori from the SANS Institute. Welcome to our panel, Lessons Learned from Diverse Paths to Successful Cybersecurity Careers. I think we're going to have a fun time here. We will be watching the question windows. So if you have any questions for us, enter them into the Pigeonhole client you have and put the name of the speaker you want to get an answer from, and we'll get back to you. So with that, let's get started. So what we want to do here is talk about a fun topic, how to establish or grow your career in cybersecurity. It's a very cool area. We've got four very interesting panelists. I'm the least interesting, so I'm going to go quickly through my part. But those of us who've worked in cybersecurity over the years know there's all kinds of different things you can do and ways you can grow your careers. And we've all taken very different paths through there. We're going to, each of us, go through how we got through our careers, where we are today, what we thought were some cool things we learned all the way, and advice we're trying to pass on to you guys, and hopefully generate some good discussion. So let's get going. So my career has been a set of random decisions made over the years for no particularly good reason. I got an electrical engineering degree in college from the University of Connecticut. And because NSA did not require you to wear a tie to interview with them, I interviewed with them, and my girlfriend thought it'd be cool to live near Washington, D.C. So I went to work for NSA right out of college and doing communications encryption. Till a friend called and said, "Hey, I work for the Secret Service and a guy just died in our office in a car crash. You should come work here." So I did that and got into a whole bunch of things, surveillance systems, communication security again. And then unfortunately, almost 40 years ago today, John Hinckley shot President Reagan, and my job changed to doing bulletproof armor and flying all over the world doing that, which did not seem to be taking advantage of my electrical engineering degree. So I jumped to a big old company, a telephone company called GT back then, that for some reason also made TVs and light bulbs, but did government systems work for NSA and the CIA, and got into secure computer systems. And GT also had a big thing called the Labs, which was one of the first internet nodes, and the Morris worm hit. And I said, "Whoa, that sounds like fun, doing things about that." So I went to Trusted Information Systems, who was one of the first firewall companies out there, until they got acquired. And then I went to Entrust, which was the first PKI company out there and the start of encryption. And then Gartner came calling, and all these moves I made after leaving GT all had to do with people I knew calling me and saying, "You should come work here." And Gartner came calling, and spent 13 years as the lead security analyst for Gartner. And then I decided it'd be time to work more on the people side. And for the past 8 years, I've been with SANS, which was if you're not familiar with SANS, biggest training company out there. So all my career is a random set of decisions that ended up in a really fun and really rewarding career. And I learned some cool stuff. What surprised me the most, this quote from one of my favorite security analysts, Helen Keller, sort of captures it, is how quickly things keep changing. The internet really brought that on board. The start of my career, mainframe security, and before the internet, security didn't change that quickly. But now things change rapidly. Nothing stays still long. A new technology comes along. The bad guys say cool. The good guys say cool. The business side adopts it before it's secure. The bad guys break in. And then we start to figure out ways to deal with it. And just about when we think we've dealt with something, the bad guys figure out a new way, or the business guys want to use a new technology, and it all starts over again. And it's just constantly challenging. The other cool thing that surprised me is it's almost like this is a career, and we make good paychecks. It's good money in this career, but we're also fighting the good fight. We really are trying to help people be more safe. Companies and their customers and our friends and everybody we know be more safe using this really cool thing that started out as a simple network and has really turned into a critical backbone for many ways of life. As the pandemic pointed out, how critical it's been to trying to do online education and keep people working. It's I call fighting the good fight is a cool part of this career. So the other thing I asked everybody to talk about is some lessons to pass along. So my advice to you starting out, if you're at the beginning of your career, try to learn how to build stuff first. These days, that mostly means software, but certainly networks and applications and other things. And then if you can get involved in hardware, great. If not, play around with Arduino boards or Raspberry Pi if you're later on in your career. Every move I made was pretty much for a lateral paycheck. I think maybe once out of all my changes, I made a big jump in money. Just make moves based on what you think you'd enjoy doing or have fun doing or would be a change, or you could help fight the good fight. The money will always follow. The key thing we learned in security is to look for patterns. And every year of experience you gain, start building your own machine learning algorithm, your pattern recognition in your head, because so often older solutions can be adapted to deal with these newer problems. network as much as you can with your fellows security people out there and across different communities and verticals. The RSA conference, obviously, when it's been in person, has been great for that. But every conference you can go to, or different training courses, interact with the other students, or if you go to InfraGard chapter meetings in your local neighborhood, do that. It's very easy in security to always be the people who say no. No, that can't be done. Hackers could break into that. No, that's not a good enough solution. The real key to this world is making progress, solving some of the easy problems, getting good enough security in place that business can move on and make money and people can do the things they need to do. And think locally, act locally, get involved locally in schools and things in your community and make some improve in your vertical, make improvements there. And if you can solve some local problems, and enough of us do these, they start adding up to some bigger global solutions. So that's my sort of rapid path through. I want to turn things over to Ladrina Cherney, and we'll ask her for her viewpoint in these same areas. Oops, one more, fight the good fight, last reminder.
I love it. Thank you, John, for sharing your story. Let me share mine. So I am somebody who was lucky enough to grow up in the San Francisco Bay Area as the first .com boom was happening. So I was a teenager who was making what I thought at that time was great money working for AOL and Plugged In, who was a group empowering other teenagers and people from low-income communities to come online and express their voices. But really what I think is very unique about my background is that I'm a first-generation college student. I'm also a first-generation high school graduate, and we can go back beyond that. But what I want to stress is I'm somebody whose parents did not have a white-collar career. However, as a child of immigrants, I was always told, you will go to college. So whatever happens beyond that, great, but you will go to college. And that seemed like a pretty straightforward career path for me at the time. Go to college, get a job. But it wasn't quite that easy. I was always interested in tech, as you can tell from my working as a teenager in the .com boom. But when I went to college, it was to pursue a computer science degree. And I knew one thing coming out of that degree, which is that I did not want to be a programmer. I loved going to school. I loved learning. It is one of the hardest things I've done in my life, and I'm so proud of having accomplished that. But I was still searching for what I wanted to do as a career. So to make a long story short, I took advantage of being in the Boston area, doing some more learning and going to night school. And really, it was going back to night school and taking community college classes that I found out about the field of digital forensics. And as John mentioned, everything from there were people who I knew and networked with. One of my last professors in my digital forensics curriculum that I took at community college after getting my bachelor's degree is somebody who I worked for a decade, doing intellectual property theft and terrorism-related investigations, really doing low-level cybercrime technical work. But from there, I've moved on, and I decided to join, at that time, what was still a very small startup, Cybereason, where I am now. I've been in different roles at the company, and now I focus on security value, while still keeping my feet wet in the digital forensics world, teaching for SANS Institute. But I'm also exploring other things like policy, and I'm working with a program at the Aspen Institute at their Aspen Tech Policy Hub right now, working on policy. So while I don't have all the arrows pointing to all these different experiences across my career, you can see it pivoted quite a bit from going to school for a computer science degree to learning about the forensics field, and now what I do working in standards and policy. So if we go to the next slide, I think what surprised me the most about my journey is today. The thing that I enjoy doing the most, working in and teaching digital forensics, helping people become more secure, helping defend people against attackers, is that I work in a field that I didn't know existed as a young person that I didn't know existed when I was in college. So I happen to be a big fan, by the way, of crime solving shows. So if you told me, oh, maybe you could be a computer crime investigator, I would get what that meant. But the idea of the field of digital forensics and working at a really, really low level to solve crimes, to support lawsuits and investigations is something that was never on my radar as a young person and never on my radar as I graduated with my degree. So that's something that surprised me and something that I'm really grateful I've been able to pivot to. By the way, John mentioned it already, and I suspect you'll hear it again coming up. It's a really small world and networking is key. I'll give a shout out to one of my first employers at Plugged In, Ian McCarthy, who's been a big supporter of me earlier in my career, who even today, 20 years later in my career today, has been an advocate and a mentor for me. So it's a small world, networking is key. That person who you are in a program with early in your career or meet at a conference could be pivotal to a move and really key to something you do later in your career. So next slide, please. So because I've had such a winding journey through the industry, not really knowing where I was going to end up from where I started, I would say for those of you who are looking to get into the industry or who are not just coming in out of school, but maybe are changing careers, I think everybody out there has some superpower. You know, for me, it's somebody who has that technical computer science background, who has a very deep specialty in forensics. However, I also now, in my past few years working at Cybereason, have been exposed heavily to the business side of cybersecurity. So beyond that, being technical at different levels, having business experience, and also looking into policy now as my latest career move, that gives me the superpower of being at the intersection of all of these Venn diagrams that I don't think a lot of people out there in the world have. And for you, if you are coming from whatever career or background it is you're coming from, if you are in customer service, that is great. If you have a liberal arts degree, wonderful. You have experience in some professional area that maybe other people don't have. And when you apply your technical expertise to it, that's where you're going to shine. I've said it a few times already. I'm sure you'll hear it again. Build your network. The people that you meet today might be the people who help you find your next role, whether it is next year or 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. And by the way, keep learning. I think it's important to point out that I went through what I thought was going to be a very clear career progression for me. Go to college, get your degree, get your job, and it didn't work out that way. I went to school, I went back for more continuing ed, and even today, I keep pursuing continuing education credits to keep up with the field because it's ever changing. So that is my advice, and I'm looking forward to hearing my other panelists' stories.
Okay, thanks, Audrina. Over to you, Eno.
Very interesting background, John and Lodrina. My name is Eno Iroha. I'm the founder and chief strategist of NetSecurity. My journey is very different than John's and Lodrina. After graduating from high school in Nigeria, I came to the United States seeking to obtain a degree. And because of my interest in math and computing, I decided to double major in computer science and math. So I graduated from Morgan State University in Baltimore with dual degrees, graduating top of my class. And right after graduate school, I went to a school called George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where I also pursued my master's in computer science. At that time, security wasn't really very popular, but I managed to focus my master's degree concentration in security. Then they talk about security policies and cryptography and communication security and so on and so forth. So right after graduate school, I joined a company called SAIC, where I was developing C++ codes. And right around 11 months, not quite a year, I joined a company called Trusted Information System. And that's how John Pescatori, our moderator here, that's how we met. So at Trusted Information System, like John indicated, was one of a few security companies. We were one of the top 2 firewall vendor at that time, right? So, I had the opportunity to go to SANS, the second SANS ever. And back in 1997, I also went to RSA. There you network with your peers, you meet inventors, and I met inventors and authors and publishers, and even the founders of RSA, of the cryptography, Ron Rivers, and I don't remember the other gentleman. And I actually interacted with Ron Rivers back in '97. So, and my background again ranges from working in commercial sectors as well as the public sectors, including civilian agencies and defense agencies. One of my most notable experiences has been a principal security engineer at Marine Corps Network Operation and Security Command, which is now Marforce Cyber, and which is part of the US Command. I actually was one of the lead engineers responsible for developing tools that will automate a lot of the security operation tasks that we're faced with. So it was quite exciting. Right after Marforce Cyber, I joined, throughout my career, I've actually worked in security companies. And that was one of the things that really excited me in the beginning. I said, to really be in security, I have to work in a security company to learn all the skills that I need, either in consulting or in product support or product development and so on and so forth. So I've worked in pretty much security companies throughout my career, from VeriSign to Trusted Information System, which became McAfee now, and now in 2004 I started NetSecurity, right? And a friend asked me, don't think you're going to get rich providing security consulting services. So I said, really? Why won't I get rich doing security consulting services? And he said, you got to have a product. So that word from my very good friend Blake Torrington sank into my memory. Next slide, please. So since doing security for this period of time, I have a lot of surprises. The last or the first encounter was hacking investigation that I investigated when I worked for Trusted Information System in '96. And what we saw then, what companies were doing to protect themselves were using firewall, antivirus technologies, and ACLs and IDS and so on and so forth, right? So those were the security tools or technologies we use to protect networks at that time. And so we thought that, our job was going to be extinct because technologies was going to take over, and there won't be a need to have security consultants. And little did I know that I was going to be wrong. So if you look at the threat landscape today, companies are getting hacked left and right, no matter the sophistication of the security technologies that are in place, right? So companies are still getting hacked, leveraging the same type of the same attack vectors, right? Unpatched system, weak password policies, weak security protocols, or weak protocols in general, or insecure services, right? So, and moreover, organizations aren't leveraging the technologies they've invested in to the full capability of those technologies. So a lot of security vendors are basically flooding the market with different buzzwords in the industry. So but the attack landscape is still getting escalated. The attackers are still escalating, so the company with best technologies may not necessarily win the market, win the race, because there's a lot of flooding. And one of the things that surprised me is politics and security doesn't mix. It's like oil and water, right? So politics, it's always getting in the way of security. Next slide, please. So I'm often asked the question, how do I get started in security, right? So what I always tell them is forget about certifications, right? Get your hands-on skill, learn to break stuff, learn to build stuff, right? If you have an idea for a product or technology, go after it. Go after it, seek help, make it happen. And take on big challenges, right? Like John and Lodrina mentioned, network. And that is going to give you some ideas on how to build a better technology. And I would also say, stop chasing money, right? Like John mentioned, if you want to do lateral movement, that's good. In some cases, you may have to take a salary cut, right? So just to be in the right position and be able to make impact, right? Challenge yourself, take courses, programming, develop codes in C, C++, assembler, the hard stuff, right? It may be difficult, like Lodrina said, but at the end of the day, you will become become indispensable. So to succeed, to succeed in security, you have to have hands-on skills in program development, in coding, in scripting, in network administration. I understand that the knowledge base as required is massive, but you can stay focused and develop the hands-on skills that you need to be able to succeed. So I thought starting a security company will make me retire at 50, but that's not the case in my case. So those are some of the advice that I've learned over the years, and hopefully you can apply some of this lesson learned and be able to succeed.
Okay, thanks, Zena. Over to you, Zena.
Wow, these are some really great lessons. Thank you to all the panelists sharing your backgrounds. It was really fascinating hearing everyone's story. And I too have a very different background. So I came from small business. And what does that mean? So small business, it taught me a lot about life and about the real world. I had to learn how to be persistent and personable. I had to believe in myself no matter what, regardless of what was going on. I had to be resourceful and creative. And above all else, I had to consider the long game for pretty much everything I did and strive to create win-win outcomes for everything. It's very important. I am too from a family of immigrants. I'm a first generation Mexican American, and I am the first one in my family to pursue a doctorate and to have a master's degree. Growing up, education was always extremely important to my family. I honestly thought I was going to be a doctor. I was top of my class. I was studying biochemistry. All I did was study all the time. And that's around the time when the real estate market got really hot. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to be a business owner because I came from a family of small business owners. So I had a lot of exposure to it and I'm like, this will be easy. So I did that for quite a while, for over a decade. It was not as easy as I anticipated, but I learned a lot. And so through doing all of that, I got to foster my interest and my love for computers and technology. And one day someone suggested that I give it a shot, that it's an actual career. As Lodrina said, it was really shocking to me that the stuff that I enjoyed doing for my small business was an actual career that people got paid to do. So I decided to sign up for the SANS Women's Academy and take their test and interview and just give it a shot, see if I could get in. If not, great. If I did, I'll just do it. So luckily, SANS saw something in me and invited me to be a member of the SANS Women's Academy, and I ended up graduating in 2017. I got 3 certifications through that. the GSEC, the GCIH, and GCFE, and SANS actually just ignited a fire. And through doing all the certifications and meeting with the other women in the group and engaging with the SANS staff, I just knew that cybersecurity and information security was where I belonged and where I needed to be. So luckily, I got my first job in the industry in 2018. And since then, I've managed to get 8 GX certifications. And through community involvement, I'm a senior lead at DEF CON's Blue Team Village. And I also did some VTAing, virtual TAing for SANS. Next slide, please. So what surprised me over the years, I have all of this experience, I have a lot of small business, I have a background in biochemistry, like what could possibly surprise me? And actually a lot surprised me about corporate America and cybersecurity. I tend to be a person that believes in hard work, and that if you just work really hard and give it your best and network and do all of that, that you will succeed and you will rise to the top and all of that for the long game. But in some circumstances, that's not necessarily true. You need help. You need help and you need support along the way. And a good person that is either in your corner or not in your corner is your manager. And your manager is very, very important. Here, I'll just read a quote here from Emily Freeman. She's the author of DevOps for Dummies. And the other day, she had a great tweet. So I'm not going to try to paraphrase it. I'm just going to read it. Once a manager makes it clear they don't value you, believe them and move on. And I didn't quite understand what that meant. Go back a couple years, but now I do. Now I completely understand what it means. And I completely appreciate how important your manager is. They can either make or break your career at a company. They can be supportive, uplifting, they can inspire you to be the best version of yourself, or they can make you hate and dread coming to work every day, even though you love your job and what you do. There are all kinds of managers. There are inspiring leaders that set good examples based on their words and actions. And then there are others. I won't get into those ones. And just like the general population, even if you're working for a Fortune 500, managers are not immune to all the things that impact the average person. They're human too. So some general advice that I learned over the past couple of years is that setting your personal ethical lines, and if they're crossed, have an idea of what you will do and how you will respond. You might not necessarily have control of the situation, but you have control of how you respond and how you act and what you do. So I highly recommend that. The second one, so diversity and inclusion. There's a lot of diversity and inclusion initiatives out there. Some of them are really great and some of them not so much. So just be aware of that. There are also a ton of resources available to minorities and people that aren't, the general information security professionals. So definitely take advantage of those. SANS has a lot of resources. When I first got into cybersecurity too, I thought I was going to be red team, total red team. But after being on the blue side, it dawned on me that my interest in red is more so from a blue perspective to be able to provide to red what it is that they need in order to be more valuable to blue, essentially. So part of what I do in the community too is cyber threat intelligence and attempting to provide practical solutions for cyber threat intelligence that helps other teams, and red is included. And I believe other people may have mentioned networking and all of that. And the way that I do that is through community involvement. And so I highly recommend that as well. Everyone said that. Please get involved in the community if you can, even if it's just, random, just interacting with people because you'll see them later. And experienced folks are great. So just like Ladrina, they are a wealth of information, and and John, everyone on this panel is a wealth of information. So definitely take advantage of people that are willing to speak with you. So some advice. I highly recommend prioritizing your learning. There'll be a lot of people that want your time and want you to do things. And I suggest prioritizing your learning and what you do, because at the end of the day, it's just you that you have to rely upon. The people, that want you to do all these other things aren't going to be there with you at 3 a.m. in the morning when you're up late doing a project. So keep that in mind. Stay curious, ask a ton of questions, and cultivate your creativity. And that involves like doing projects and getting involved in coding or machine learning or anything that sparks that curiosity and makes you want to find out more. Do that. Network and build a support system. I can't stress enough the importance and the value of that. And you want to build it before you need it. And you'll always need it. So just work on it. That's all I'm saying. And finally, develop a leadership philosophy. So with that, it gives you an idea of how you'll behave in certain situations, and it defines the type of leader that you want to be. And I think that that's very important. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks to all three. We got a few minutes left before I explain this slide. Wanted to toss a question out to everybody here. We all mentioned networking. Let's leave aside the RSA conference. Obviously, we'd be pushing that. What have you guys found as good ways to network people, both in person and virtually, Ladrina?
Yeah. So with networking, I would say, right now, as we're all working from home, there's the opportunity to attend lots of other virtual events. And particularly, I've had luck with attending events that are in a specialty that you like to get involved in, or events that are local, so that once we get back to seeing each other in person, you'll have local contacts, especially as you're thinking about careers that might be in your local area, and staying in touch with people on LinkedIn. So making sure that you get that connection.
Or Zena, any thoughts of yours?
My suggestion would be to join different association and groups. Like I know in the DC area, we have ISACA, we have ISSA. So it's always good to, if you're starting out or if you're already an industry veteran, join those kind of groups and volunteer in some of the committees. That's one of the ways to basically contribute to the industry and also get recognized and hopefully land your next gig.
So from my perspective, having done a lot of networking in my life, I right now, currently, I like to lead with providing value. So I find different networks, like for instance, I really love cyber threat intelligence and I love purple teaming. So with those two, I try to attend conferences or summits. For instance, SANS has a free Purple Team Summit coming up. SANS usually has the annual CTI Summit in January. So I attend those and then I try to give either resources or information, and I interact with the people, or I volunteer, or I serve on the CFP review board. I really love being on the CFP review board for a lot of different conferences, and I do that just because personally I enjoy it and I learn a lot and I can provide value to the speakers, and just get involved, offer value where you can, and narrow it down to a niche or an area that you're interested in, that you feel you have something valuable to offer. I know that sometimes I get people asking for coffee dates or coffee meetings. And when you add that up over time, that's like a full-time job. So instead of asking people for time immediately, I try to find out what they're interested in, through either casual conversation or seeing what they're posting in the group chats. And then I find whatever it is related to that, like threat reports or research or something or ideas, and then I present it to them. Like I get very creative and out of the box. And then, I build the relationship before I ask for anything from someone else. So that's
Okay.
my suggestion.
All right, thanks. One quick thing from each of you before we close out here. What online, not SANS, not RSA, what online place do you go to? What online place would you say go to for good information that's important stuff about cybersecurity? And again, not SANS and not RSA. Let's start with Inno this time.
LinkedIn is very valuable to me. You have a lot of people posting, publishing things. So you can learn a lot of stuff from that. For the forensics, for example, I also leverage forensics focus is one of them, right? So they talk about incident response and digital forensics and incident response. And so they discuss tools, techniques, and so on and so forth. And also GitHub, right? So GitHub has a lot of arsenal of security technologies, right? So people tend to publish their projects or codes. So when you go down there, you can actually find a lot of interesting projects that you may be interested in to either contribute, test, or just again volunteering just to support.
Okay, Zena, any one online site you'd recommend?
Sure. Twitter. I have a curated following and curated lists that I leverage on Twitter and hashtags, and it's this whole elaborate system. And I highly recommend it. That's how I do that's how I get a lot of information or heads up about certain things going on. So I highly recommend Twitter and curating your experience.
Okay, Ladrina, what about you?
Quickly, I'm going to echo what both Eno and Zena said. I use LinkedIn for staying in touch with people who I've done business with. However, I use Twitter daily for interacting with people who maybe are on the fringes of my network and expanding my network. And I think joining Twitter is probably one of the things that has helped my career the most.
Okay, the one I'll throw in is either the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times online, because the real world is what impacts us. The business things, new technology, business things, political things changing are what causes security to change and threats to change. So we tend to get so focused on our being inside the industry, getting that outside exposure, I think is key. So with that, we're just about out of time on the screen here. See a message, pass it forward. We're all talking about networking. Help other people when they come to you to network. Be a mentor to other people. Volunteer for local efforts to help at schools and colleges and elementary schools. SANS has a thing we've invested in here, CyberStart America. It's we give our online courses for free to the high school and early college kids. If they pass the test, and it's kind of like a game they play. If they can score high at the game, they get free online education. They go to their community college, win free scholarships to four-year places, or get a 2-year bachelor's applied degree in applied cybersecurity and go out and get a job right away with a 2-year degree. So it's a way you can get your kids involved, your neighbor's kids, your grandkids, your nephews, your nieces, or random people you run into on the street to help them get into the career. With that, I'd like to thank our panel and thank the audience for attending, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Bye-bye.
Thank you.